All right, let's make sure that's good. All right, streaming. Let's go to Facebook. Well, good morning, and welcome to Doppler'S Gear Garage. How you doing today? Okay, well, first of all, thanks so much for tuning in. Let me jump over to this window. Let me see all the beautiful people that are in the house this morning. I see Sonia. I can tell by the icon there. Where's my beverage? Sonia, raising them up. Good morning to you. Griffin Gaines, hello. Jerry, the vegan rock star. Bobby Valdez. Don't bogart the riffs on 420. So that I knew we weren't going to escape today. Without somebody talking about 420. So sorry, I get a little indulgent there. That wasn't planned for today. In fact, I have a very interesting plan for today. First of all, thanks for tuning in. Most important part of the show, besides actually remembering to run the bumper, I think that's the first time I've ever done that. I kind of looked over on Facebook. I'm like, that's me taking Facebook Live. But you know what? So be it. In any case, we know what time it is. It's time to raise them up. Come on. So this is kind of one of my favorite things because it's always nice to give a salute and kind of have a moment of camaraderie and just kind of saying hello. So hello. So today is going to be a slightly different endeavor. What I wanted to do is share my thoughts about a bunch of things, but also get your input and feedback and ask you some stuff as well, as opposed to just kind of do this thing. I am in the midst of working on this very increasingly intensive curriculum for 15-minute fundamentals. And the concept is that, 15 minutes out of a 24-hour day, 8 hours sleeping, 8 hours working, right? And then 8 hours left over, like 15 minutes. Matt King, good morning, my dear friend. Great to see you. That, we could probably squeeze in 15 minutes of very intense practice. And I've been kind of out on the web looking at as many of the different music educators as I can to just kind of see what people are doing, like my buddy Matt King. How is it that people are teaching? How many people like Matt Keeping the Faith teaching in person, has a teaching studio, and teaches a range of instruments, and versus myself that kind of, I realized, we went out to dinner with some friends last night, and I am a completely, in this moment, except for when I go out and play live, I'm a virtual animal. I WFH, work from home. And it's a very interesting thing because as I've been looking at what I do so I can make it better, I've been realizing that there's some things that happen in working from home that aren't as efficient as when somebody walks into a teaching studio and you kind of have them hand you their lesson book and you kind of go, okay, that's what I gave you last week. So I'm really kind of trying to up my game. But in the midst of that, I really, I have been trying to look at all the different verticals that I think people need help with. So I am asking you, where are you having the most challenges with your playing? I know I had a very interesting thing happen, and I'm one of these guys that I've stumbled across that is now, of course, inundating my inbox on a daily basis. And of course, when I kind of registered for their course, of course, there's the upsell. I'm just like, just treat me like I'm a dollar sign, please, not. And it just, there is this whole headspace around how can I line up as many little people as I can, bring them through the paywall, and then, and then bombard them whether they signed up or not with emails on a daily basis. I got 2 of these guys now, just like every day. I actually noticed, the funny thing is I noticed the other day, it's like, oh, spammer didn't spam me today. Hey, Andrew, what's going on? Keeping my left and right hand in sync as I increase the tempo of my playing. Oh, you're in for lots of great stuff. Awesome. That is a great point. First of all, let me just start with one great exercise to start there, because I'm just going to jump in. And really, the funny thing about today was I opted not to actually have too much of a prescribed menu or a meal plan, if you will, because I really wanted to actually be a little bit organic. And I've got a bunch of stuff here that I also want to talk about. So, Andrew, first of all, one of the things that I would strongly suggest doing is just starting with one string, and that would be the high E string. And I'm going to bring my volume down here. There we go. And taking my personal favorite is the key of G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and adding the A and the B on the top, and doing 8th-note triplets, so that by the time you do them 2 times, you will start with a downstroke, down, up, down, up. So you got, and open the metronome app. My best friend. Me and 80 BPM. Oh, hang on. No, wrong button. And as Andrew pointed out, the magic number, you got to start somewhere. For me, the magic number is 80. This little app here, what's great about it is it goes up in bumps of 5 BPM, which is exactly the amount I like to bump up. So the thing about this particular exercise, it's so good. It's perfect for not worrying about crossing strings. We're just getting the left and the right hand talking to each other without having to worry about any of the string crossing things. That said, the exercise that I am working into my system is the idea of taking groups of 3 notes and playing them across a pair of strings. That is to say, on one string, great. Across 2 strings, great. But taking 3 notes across 2 strings, or that is to say, that's 2 and 1, and 1 and 2, and then running that. Now I switched into the key of D major a minute ago, and I said I was starting off in G, but I changed my mind. So that is to say, I was doing G on the high E string, but I would suggest doing D on the 2nd string. And the idea there is, instead of just kind of playing the pairs of 3 notes, and this exercise hates me, just absolutely, totally hates me. But my whole thing is, when I find something that I'm not good at yet, I'm just like, okay, let me just be the idiot and run into the brick wall. So that one in particular, and the whole thing about that is as follows, is that, first of all, the idea of bumping it up 5 BPM, whatever it is, until you hit a ceiling where you can't do it at that speed, bump it back down 4 BPM, and usually if you bump it up 1 BPM each time you do it right, you'll get past that ceiling. Note what that is, then have a starting tempo like 80, find that middle tempo between where that ceiling that you back down to was, that we got to a ceiling, I couldn't quite hit that, back down to the 5 point below that, and pick that as your ceiling, or 5 below there is a probably good idea, and then just bump up in onesies above there. That way you're really locking that into your technique. Chris Alexander, great to see you, my dear friend. So the idea is, I am absolutely throwing myself in the midst of working on a gear demo. I am spending all day long thinking about the content of the vertical. So the crazy thing is like I'm famous for, like, if I can make it simple, I will find a way of complicating it because that's just who I am, and I'm okay with that. So the idea of the 15-minute fundamentals, and this is one of the reasons your feedback is great. Thank you, Andrew. I am making a series of notes as I'm looking at different things, and that left and right hand coordination is a big deal. One of my stickler guys is running the range of notes with the pentatonic across all 6 strings. Oh, like I said, across all 6 strings. But when I get back down to that 5th string, for whatever reason, that's about where the gas gets let out of the balloon, and it starts kind of plummeting to earth. So I'm really working on just kind of go, all right, just getting the range, and working on just getting that wider range of notes. I'm much better at smaller ranges of notes. But when it comes to a wider range across the neck, that's one of the areas that I'm consistently working on. Mark Turvey, good morning, Maestro. Great to see you, man. So the idea of that left and right hand coordination, the coordination of picking, again, working on a single string is a great way to just get that left and the right hand together. But the other thing is the transition between strings is one of the biggest areas that we have a tendency to stumble. Or for me, I'm better at kind of pairs of strings because I've practiced that enough that I'm getting to the place where I'm relatively happy with that. But the playing across all 6 strings with the pentatonic at what I want to be blistering speeds is just kind of just being a little elusive. So I'm working on that. Bobby, okay. So, Bobby, by the way, that's a great new profile photo that you put up. I love that. So that is a great point. And Sonia, I see you're in there. Note to self, hey, Cody, what's going on? I dare I ask, hey Phil, what's going on? Good to see you. All right, so hang on a second. Let me go in order here. I just wanted to say hello to everybody there. So Bobby, so the interesting thing is that I've got a sheet in notes on my Mac here that I'm making all these points about things, and one of the most important things is pure muscle memory. So let's just say you have 25 blues licks that are your licks. At the point that they are absolutely glued into muscle memory, it's the point where you can't play them wrong. So I will encourage you to kind of go, okay, what are the 10 go-to licks that I play? Let me take them really slowly. Let me do it looking at the neck. Let me do it not looking at the neck. And let me build it up to speed. Let me bring it past the kind of the barrier of wherever, the normal tempo is, so you can play them faster than you would normally play them, and maybe playing them over a backing track of whatever song it is that you're playing, and then just kind of going, okay, now I'm just going to, because one of the things is that there are certain licks that once I know them, I actually can't play anything other than lick, because that's just where my hands, they know to go there so much. For example, Bobby, my guess is one of the things you never play wrong is because your hands are like, I could be driving with, kind of like, and shifting gears and, using the knee on the thing, and this, because the hands know it so well, it just built in that autonomic response. And this gets me to this next point. I had a scary moment yesterday. I happened to be looking for a tab, and I happened to go through my browser history, and this is a note to you. And I looked at all this Facebook. So it was a whole page of Facebook. I'm like, I could have been practicing. I'm like, I encourage you, everybody, just kind of go, take a look at your browser history and look at how much time you waste with this thing or doing this thing, because it was a really good wake up for me. And I'm as a reference point, how we practice what we practice is a very, very important thing. In that, are we actually kind of getting rid of digital distraction? Are we setting aside? Because one of the main things about 15-minute fundamentals is like nothing else going on. So for 15 minutes, it's me and this guy. And it's a very interesting thing because you're developing the skill of muscle memory. Bobby, the interesting thing is that, any riff that I'm going to play, even when I'm improvising, chances are I've played it before. So the idea is just kind of having a series of things that you're just kind of going, those are my riffs, right? And then just kind of practice them so many times, slow to fast, faster than you need to play them, that your hands are like, how can I play that wrong, right? And literally, it's just pure muscle memory at that point. And the neat thing about that is when that happens, I also encourage you to spend as much time as possible, let's go to G. By the way, I broke a string like seconds before I went, well, actually, like a couple minutes before I went to go live here. And, oh, look at this. Oh, interesting. Hello, China. All right. Gosh, I can't believe this is happening. So after all the amazing things I said about China last week, and I was going to talk about my great buy on Amazon, the new battery just died. Oh, gosh, do I actually have to... So the idea is being able to kind of go, okay, let me find a note, G, and then just kind of go, let me play. And what starts to happen is we develop better tactile sense. It's a little bit different than muscle memory. It's tactile awareness of the instrument. And what I discovered in the last show that I did is I kind of did this thing. And Melissa saw kind of what happened. It's like, I went into this crazy blistering solo just going for it. And I was like, wow, all that time I've been practicing not looking at the neck, I actually am able to feel my way up and down the fingerboard. I'm seeing lots of stuff come in there. Good morning, first of all. If I haven't said hello to you yet. And I was like, wow, this is really paying off. And that tactile sense, Bobby, and I totally get the getting excited on stage. That muscle memory thing is for me the biggest answer. Okay, what a great point. First of all, let me just go back up here and let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. Sonia, thanks for that tip there about gap click. Hold on, I'm going to make a note of that. Give me a moment. Gap click, 15-minute fundamentals, gap click. Thank you very much, Sonia. Gap click. And by the way, I've got a thing I'm doing with my students that I call Doppler dictionary, which could be conceived as vain, but it's not. I've got all these crazy terms that I'm adding. By the way, Cody, how was the show? Like we didn't know. Weather is 70 degrees and cloudy, musical rays of sunshine. You warm my heart. Thanks so much for sending that email through, by the way, Phil. That was lovely. Speed always falls back on that darn metronome. So, this gets back to our other point. This whole, it's all muscle memory and this is one of the things that, again, the common denominator. And Bobby, this also is going to come back to, I saw you jump back in there. And Mario, good morning. Terry, good morning. Great to see you. The hands, once, how do I say this? Once you know how to grab something, my buddy Rich Doyle and I got together for dinner a couple of nights ago, and he works for Tesla, and we were talking about the robots that Tesla's making, and he showed me a demo. I don't remember if it was their robot or another, but it was literally the robot grabbing an egg with its robotic hand and arm and not crushing it. So there's a certain amount of that tactile. How much pressure do we need to put? And so, first of all, one of the things I would suggest doing, Bobby, and I've suggested this to people before, and this is a great point. First of all, how do you find your center? For me, I live in a space where my mind is constantly bombarded with ideas. I cannot help but be thinking about. It's interesting. My wife believes I have ADHD, which is entirely possible by some medical definition. But for me, I am thinking about a bunch of things simultaneously, and that is just how I'm wired. And that's how I exist, because I can't do just one thing, because to do what I want to do, I can't do just one thing. And in the process of that, I'm learning how to really focus my energy when I'm needing to be focused. And when I'm doing that, what are the ways that I can really build the discipline? So as creatives, we love to chase whatever feels good. Let's do it. And on a day like 420, I think I could say, without going too pontificus, much of my misspent youth and adult life was spending too much time on the wrong things. So I couldn't let today, for those of you who don't know, 420 is about, I guess there was a backstop somewhere like the one that I would have inhabited when I was a young adult, where at 420 people would, partake. So, I just need to kind of go there. Like, drugs nearly destroyed my life. And so pot was the gateway drug. So, if you smoke pot, more power to you. For me, it was a really bad and destructive thing. And we live in the state of California where kind of anything goes. And for me, I was like, yeah, anything went, and it didn't go well. That's all I got to say about that. So whatever works for you. I'm not here to judge, but I am here to say it's like, you know what? It ended up being not a good thing for me. Back to the guitar playing. One of the things I used to suggest to people was just go into a guitar center and pick up the guitar and play through whatever amp. Have some guitar center riffs. Such that you literally are just used to coming into a situation where, like, I got to be on now. And you kind of learn how to just grab on to whatever it is you grab onto. Another thing, Bobby, would be just like, be outside, come in, turn the amp on. And find your vibe instantly, and just kind of get used to going from zero to start. And another thing that I would suggest doing would be to have a Pro Tools session. Just kind of go, you hit play. 1, 2, 3, 4. But bend in tune. And the idea is, how do you go from, because it's one of the hardest things, when you're bar one, beat one of recording, you got to kind of, if I've got by the time you get to measure 2, you're like, oh, your body's kind of got the flow thing going. But before that happens, you're at click, 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 click. How do you get, so, I guess maybe I guess just gave myself the medicine. 1, 2, 3, 4. The other thing in terms of relaxing, one of the things you might want to do is just manage your breathing. The other part of it, getting back to the muscle memory, if you can practice what it feels like, because I had this hotel room, we're going to talk about this bit in a minute. I had a hotel room thing. I love to, when I'm out on the road, I'll wake up at like 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I'll have hotel practice. And I have these amazing practice sessions that are just like these giant downloads. And one of the things that happened in one of those sessions was the idea of going, I just started playing extra light with my right hand. I was like, oh, wow. And kind of like, then I was, it really went, I went, wow, I can kind of do that really fast. I was like, whoa. Because when you start to dig in more, you start to kind of, your musculature starts to tense up a little bit. Now that said, there are times that you want to dig in for the sound of the way the strings. Because you want that attack of. But there are times you want a lighter touch. And so really being very conscious of like what are the gradations of tension in my arms, how much of it is if I'm tensing up to do something like, you know, and then being able to. So I would suggest maybe spending some time going from tense to relax, and see if you can help train your body to navigate that the difference between the two. I'm going to think more about that. That's breathing would be great. I'd also be really conscious of how much caffeine you've got. I would also be conscious of when you're on stage and you find yourself starting to get excited. First of all, take a breath before your solo. And just kind of go and just focus on pacing, right? And also, you know, just kind of go, okay, what is the fastest rate that I know I've got today, right? And just kind of go, cool. And you know, again, as an antithesis to that, running into the room, picking up the guitar, and going, all right, how quick can I play? So you just get used to coming at it from all those different directions. So I hope that's a help. And you know, Andrew, the interesting thing is that what I'm trying to stress, quote unquote, with people is that 80 BPM is actually where the magic happens, because at 80 BPM, you can really hear, as opposed to, when you're going fast, sorry, I was trying to put the gap, I can't do it when I'm playing faster, but slowly. What happens is sometimes when people are making the transitions, they get into trouble. So the idea is that you're actually just going, hey, let me just make sure I've got it right. Because if you can't play it slowly, you can't play it fast. And the other thing about that, slowing it down, if tension is the thing, kind of going, okay, if I'm tense, let me just try and get my hands as loose as possible. And now. And I went, wow. Again, as I was in the hotel, I just started playing extra loud. I wasn't thinking about it. I went like, whoa. And I kind of went, okay. So being really conscious of that gradation. But the metronome is absolutely your best friend. Mario, good morning. If I didn't already say hello. Terry, I think I got you. Matt, I had a moment yesterday thinking about idiosyncratic vibrato versus intended vibrato. So this is an interesting thing. So there will be somebody out there that no one has ever said, by the way, vibrato is a rhythmic subdivision of the tempo that you're playing to. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So for me, since I was 15, one, two, three, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I think bend to a note. Sorry, in tune. And add that one's a little hard, but it's the release vibrato. You bend up to the note. Wah, 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 wah. Eighth note triplet. Eighth note. So with vibrato, there's also not only the subdivision, but how wide you're going to go. Generally, kind of the more ballad-like, the less I'm going to be inclined to go do a big, wide, angry. But again, that's so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 versus this. There's this. And again, even inside the rhythm playing. As Matt wisely said, idiomatic vibrato, which is a big thing. Zach, hello. Good morning to you. California. Zach, you know, the funny thing is, one of the things I've got is I've got a pair of power cabs. And I'm thinking, what a great vehicle, because Zach is a Line 6 enthusiast in a serious way. Building a wet, dry, wet rig using a pair of power cabs. What a great way to have powered cabs for your wet on left and right. So I'm going to build a rig doing that. In any case, Terry Doris, hello, hello. I find dexterity using the flat part of the finger rather than the tips. Steve Vai and Satch both do that. So the let me go idiomatic on you. First of all, yes, yes, and yes. And then it also depends on kind of what's happening idiomatically. One of the interesting things is that in terms of a kind of a classical hand position, right? So when I'm playing more legato, I'm using a combination of playing on the pad, especially on that first finger. Because that tip of that first finger is meeting the lower adjacent string. And the fleshy part of it is meeting the upper string. So that is, say, if I'm playing on the 5th string, and I hit all 6 strings, that's all I'm out of that first finger. But the other fingers, one of the really important parts is to get that, for me, that last joint there, that curl and arch. Because that's how I'm able to, for me, and I harass my students about this a lot, get that articulation on the pull-ups. But that first finger in particular, I'm very much down on that part. Now, the interesting thing, when I'm doing bends, I'm much further down on the pad. This is a really great conversation, by the way. Because one of my early teachers, before I started studying with Joe, actually taught me to actually on bigger bends. They taught me to bend in tune. So I guess I don't do it anymore. They taught me to bring the string over the top of my nail, which you can't really see. But I've now gotten to the point where I don't do that, and I'm using my pad at an angle such that the upper edge of the pad is pushing. Well, there it kind of went up a little bit, but it's pushing the lower string up and out of the way. And that, I'm way, way down on the pad there. I mean, like super, super low, which is one of the reasons my calluses have this crazy bulbous growth because, if you were to compare that finger to this one, you probably can't see. Yeah, you can actually. Just like there's just all this stuff over here that is literally, it's kind of like all around there. And it's not just like, oh, I played in one spot and the callus grew big. It's because I'm playing in lots of different places. So that is a very good point. And talking about specifically kind of where I am on the pads, the other thing that I have a conversation with my students about is the idea of your hand position and the arch. So if you grab a pencil and you kind of extend the fingers and so they're kind of curling around, compensating such that you're still facing up the neck, if you will, this being the equivalent of the neck, with the pinky, curling and arching the other fingertip and using the arch in the fingertips, which means at that point you are down on the pad. But especially if you take a look at kind of where I am of the first finger versus the second, third in particular, you'll see I'm much further on the pad with the first finger than I am with the other fingers. So really great point. Thank you for that. The other thing is I'm much further over on the side of the pad. That is to say, here than in the center. And there's a number of reasons for that. That assists in getting that curl and arch with the fingertips without unwanted hammer-ons. And that's a really big deal. But the idea of keeping that pinky facing up the neck, if that's at all of a challenge for you, just doing a little bit of this kind of allows you to go, oh, okay, I got that. Now, I actually have a student that has actually taken that a little too far. He's one of my 14-year-old whiz kids. I have 3 14-year-old students that are so good, I just kind of don't know what to do with myself. Just insane. I digress. So the point being is one of them has actually kind of gotten, they're over accentuating this arch right here, and he's already got really big fingers and long hands, but as opposed to getting kind of this classical hand position, we've got some curl and arch. He's bringing a little bit more here. And the funny thing is, usually I got people trying to do this, and I'm trying to get people more like this, and he's actually all the way over there. I'm like, no, we just want to relax you a little bit. So that pencil is a big deal for just kind of going, well, how is my hand position for that stuff? So that's been a very valuable tool for me. Terry, thank you for that. Much appreciated. Hello, Melissa Doppler. Tom Atkins, good morning, my dear friend. Possibly all musically obsessed people appear to have ADHD. Thank you very much. No Stairway Guitar Center risk. Come on. Bobby, the Zen of playing. Sorry, I can't read. Hardly. The Zen of guitar playing by Doug Doppler. So, I mean, here's the thing. It's an interesting thing, Terry. I think there's a certain amount of me personally. What I'm trying to do is when I pick up the instrument, there's certain things that are, for example, watching Satriani, watching Vi, there's certain solos they play. Like, they're playing that solo because that was a solo and thing. And again, first of all, I love discourse, so please don't misunderstand my our conversation here, because I think it's a great one. So there's a certain amount that and funny thing is, the conversation I had with myself a little bit earlier was I was listening to something, I'm listening to recordings of the songs that we're working on. Sometimes I'll work stuff out and I kind of went, I would have been better to just totally improvise in there. And some of the best things, I'm kind of coming back as I'm going through a couple of years of recordings at this point, I'm kind of keeping some of the things that I was just improvising, just going for. So point to you. That said, sometimes once we kind of find that moment of inspiration, we're like, okay, what was going on there? What are some of the quote unquote signature things that I do that I can be really conscious of? And you all might have heard me say this before. With Steve, at the clinic he gave at GIT in 1984, said, I don't practice for my best day, I practice for my worst day. And that really has stayed with me all these years, decades, in that kind of like, what are some of the things that, hey, Greg, good morning. That I do when I'm not thinking about things. Like this morning, I kind of picked up the guitar, and I don't know, I don't remember what key I was in, but if I just want to have a conversation on the guitar, what's my vocabulary? And I don't want to have totally rehearsed licks, and I want to be able to have a conversation. Without having to think about it. But at the same time, there are also times I'm like, well, on days that I'm not very fluent, I'm like, what have I got? So I'm kind of personally practicing for a little bit of both. And, so your comment was overthink. There are days that I think we know that we're going to pick it up and like, boy, I wasn't inspired today. And so kind of what do we have to fall back on? Then in those moments, I'm kind of like, well, if I'm kind of trying to lean into like just inspiration and I'm just not feeling it today, then what have I got to do? And I find in those moments, I do think a little bit more because I'm kind of like, because that's kind of all I got. Another great point. And I will, thinking and overthinking. I love that. Overthinking. Thank you for that, Terry. Appreciate it. Greg, I love the way you think about your soloing intelligently as well as incorporating your natural feel. Wow. Thank you very much. You're a great player, Greg, so that means a lot. Thank you. And we've been around some of the same digs. Greg is also a former student of Joe Satriani's, and I'll give him a shout out. He was also responsible for returning the Squares Marshall to Joe Satriani, so there's that. And yes, the metronome is your friend. The metronome, and I love that photo. Metronome is the law. In the good interpretation of it's like, if you're going 56 miles an hour and the sign says 55, the speedometer tells you what you're doing. The other thing is it allows you to kind of go, what is the rate? What am I aiming for? And one of the great things is, Bobby, for example, there's a particular, all right, this is what I would suggest doing. For your blues songs, or whatever it is, the ones that you solo, take the song, don't live there too long, and speed it up by 5 BPM. And just get used to soloing and like, holy cow, all the notes are a lot closer together. And then when you kind of start playing it, and I would suggest doing that maybe a day or two before the gig and just kind of just get you, holy cow, I feel too excited. And you're like, ah. And when you go back and play it at the tempo, presuming the drummer is consistent about the tempo, you'll find like, oh, I feel so relaxed. And there are games that we play with ourselves because we're human. My sweet spots. Spencer, I see your question. I'll get there in just a moment. I have how perfect is this? I have a collection of 1mm Tortex picks, and hiding in the bottom is this one little medium. No, is that yeah, it's a medium. No, it's lighter than that. Hold on. The blind guy, I'm not technically blind, but the old guy, the funny thing is, I got this great magnifying glass app. Even with glasses, I can't see that says, all right, that's a 50mm. So that's literally half the thickness. So I'm working on some demos around this amp here. Let me turn the volume way down. That versus that difference in pick is one of the reasons I spend a lot of time playing with my fingers. That is to say, in this drawer here, I keep a bag of picks, and if you look at all the sizes, shapes, and colors, when I'm working on demos in particular, I will frequently kind of go, what is the right pick for the sound that I'm going for? It is huge. That said, for 40 years, probably more if I did the math right, I've been using a 1mm Jim Dunlop Tortex pick as my go-to pick. And back in the day when I was kind of big into funk, let's get over here. Let's go a little bit more like, I don't know, let's do this. Oh, I've set up for a little bit more gain than I had in mind, but hang on, we can do this. Getting that right hand so the looseness is coming from the right hand and not the pick. That said, there are times when you actually want to go for a thinner pick because of the particular sound. So one of my favorite subjects. Spencer, any advice to work the wah pedal? So I just love that. It is not a dumb question. It is one of the greatest questions ever. So the funny thing is, sounds like a dumb question, but I don't use them much. And when I'm doing the Enter Sandman solo. So the funny thing is that I'm a Dunlop endorser. Hence the custom picks and the custom strings and the strap and all the other things around here that are Dunlop. So I placed a call to my buddy Brian, who's my artist relations rep and my dear old friend, and we didn't connect because he wasn't around, but I'll just spill the beans. I am increasingly going to be doing gear demos in association with the brands that I'm fortunate enough to be endorsed by on how to. So believe it or not, the how to use a wah-wah is way up at the top of my list. There's a movie that Dunlop did called the Crybaby or something like that. Crybaby movie. And so I was fortunate enough to be in that, as well as a scene towards the end of it with my vintage wah collection. And like Eddie's in it, or Eddie was in it, I should say. Slash is in it. Kirk's in it. I'm like, when I saw the final thing, I'm like, I made the edits. Holy cow! And I'm talking about the different vintage wahs. I'm a bit of a wah fanatic. But the funny thing is that it's first of all, the stupid answer is yes. I've already kind of thought about it. It's literally going corners 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first wah exercise. You're just like, oh, really? Wacka, 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 wacka. 16 tones with the right hand. Wacka, 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 wacka. And you're like, oh, okay. And then use it like you would use your mouth. Wah, 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 wah. So as if you were using, because that's one of the things that supposedly the wah was intending to imitate, was the mute on a trumpet. Wah, wah. So it's wah, wah. And you just ease into it like that, just the same way you would go wah wah. So the same way you would move your. In fact, it's gonna be you want something dumb. I got dumber for you. Wah wah. Do that with your mouth and kind of go wah wah. That's what I. So when you go wah wah, that's when you dig it wah wah, and you just bring it in. I can't wait, Spencer. I love you, bro. I will definitely be reaching out to Brian this week. Steve, good morning to you. Great to see you. Awesome, awesome. Hello. Looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Nick, hello from Vancouver, Washington. I'll raise them up for you, my friend. My buddy Brad is from Vancouver, and I met him at a worship conference. And so I didn't realize at the time that there was a Vancouver, Washington, and a Vancouver, British Columbia. So for all this time, I thought he lived in British Columbia. Obviously, I failed. Holy cow! Failed. I wanted to say geometry because there's this thing I was watching yesterday about guitar geometry, but I failed geography. Sonia, let's say you had to play a 3-octave run. How would you change positions in between? That is so funny. Oh, Sonia, I adore you. You know that. So the funny thing is that, well, first of all, there are, oh boy, 1. All right, I missed a note. Hold on, let's try that again. There we go. So that was a... Greg, if you're still here, you got that. That was the Joe Satriani 3-octave G major scale. So the idea is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. So when I used to play that, I wasn't able to call out the note names because I didn't become a note fanatic like I am now. So that's one of the ways you can get there. That's, you know, now I was leaving out the F sharp. So let's bring in, that's another way to get there. So I'm going to go G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, G, hey, come on. What's happening is I'm getting excited about this little transition that happens there with the pinky. Going down. A really easy way to go would be go across the G major 3-note per string scale. Place right across the neck. All right, fine. Wait. There we go. So that. So, interesting point. So this is one of the good things about knowing the note names is that. For starters, way back in 1979, 1980, Joe would have had us play this G major scale that I just memorized literally where the dots are on the neck. And after all these years, besides missing a few notes the first time I played it, my hands just kind of know where that is. I should say my eyes know where that is. Now, the interesting thing is I wonder what happens... Oh, boy. There it is for A, right? So to a certain extent, you begin to memorize the sound and the feel of the shape. But that was one of the things that he felt was important to know how to get from one end of the neck to the other. That said, I kind of like these 4-note groupings. So that is to say, we're starting with one note. We do a slide. It's another way you can get there. It's just 6s with a slide up to the 7. So that was just G, A, B, C, D, E. Slide slide up to F sharp. So that's to say we're going stretch 1 2 4, stretch 1 2 4. So we're just cutting and pasting. Then starting again at G, starting again at G, and then going to that. We ended up that G A B C D. Sorry, G A B C D E F sharp, and then G, and then going the opposite way down. We're going to go G F sharp E D C B A. Sorry, G F sharp E D C B, sliding the A. We're starting from the G, right? Oh wait, right. G. Stupid me. All right, so there it is. All right, so that is to say, this was actually one of the things I was working on yesterday. I was like, you know, with the pairs of strings, but I noticed when I went to do them backwards, I wasn't nearly as fast, and as I just discovered, wasn't quite as fast coming down the neck. So basically what I was doing was I was taking this shape, which you could think about if you would take the B Phrygian mode, 3 upper string scale, and go backwards. That's another way to get there. So, thank you, Sonia. Adding that to list. 3 octave scales. So, interestingly enough, I'm gonna riff on that concept. One of the things that I think that's at the heart of what you're talking about. Looking ahead, is learning to be able to see, kind of a minute ago I just talked about the Phrygian there. If you can see that the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, think of this as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. It's literally if you were to play the first 6 notes of each mode, you can think of this as the 1. And after the 1 comes the 2. And the thing about this is that the first 6 notes of major are the same as the first 6 notes of Mixolydian. Major's got a natural 7. But aside from major and Mixolydian, the 1 and the 5, the 2, which is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, the 3, 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, the 4, 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, the 6, 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, and the 7, 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6. Each one of those shapes is unique. So once you kind of figure out what's on either side of the 1, this is the 1 shape on the lower side. You can hear or feel that shape. And then the 5, we've got the 4, and the 6. So the idea, if you can tell, and being able to navigate each pair of strings linearly like that, that's in my opinion, just as valuable. And if you were looking for a starting place and kind of an ending place at the top of the neck, Sonia, the G major, three upper string mode is a great starting place on each one of those pairs of strings. And just being able to plug that in, each one of those strings is a good way to go. All right. Andy Timmons arch where it really looks crunched around the first finger. So, the interesting thing is you go for a pentatonic. Depending on your hand position, it will come up and it will arch. Now, I think you're talking about that thing right there, which is interesting. I'll have to check that out. So, it's funny. The drummer I used to play with, Atma, used to talk about the guitar bib. I generally like the guitar to sit at about the same spot when I'm sitting down as when I'm standing up. So the idea is that generally it's in fact, it's literally, you can just kind of see it just kind of folds into the body. So when it's kind of one and the same, since I'm not having to have some weird thing happen when I'm go from sitting down and practicing and standing up, which is a big deal. That natural thing is that if you were to think about kind of, you're going to throw a bowling ball, that motion of kind of bringing the bowling ball up, well, releasing it obviously, but the point being is, what would that motion look like? It's the most natural position to hold your hand in, right? Or if you're Italian, hey, so that really, if you brought your hand up here, it almost naturally goes into that kind of classical hand position. The great thing about that is your forearm is relaxed. And this is, again, kind of that was actually one of the other things. Let's go there. Bobby, you touched on this, and I didn't quite go all the way there. How do we, again, I talked about kind of the hotel room. Being super relaxed. So one of the things that's happened is that I actually generally way prefer the sound of the guitar over picking there, but in terms of being able to control the open strings, I find that there's better control over here by the bridge, especially for palm muting. When I get up to the top strings in particular, when I'm over here, it just kind of, it's troublesome. But one of the other things I've had to do is I've had to slightly retrain my right hand and get used to being a little bit more curled around in the process of muting these strings and being able to palm mute across the upper strings when I'm up there. But the idea is that picking closer to the bridge, where I really discovered it helped was just doesn't sound good over there. So I've just forced myself to start picking over by the bridge, where I used to basically be in between the middle and neck pickup. Now I'm in between the middle and bridge pickup. And it's been a big shift, and I don't necessarily like the sound quite as much, but I'm getting used to it. The point being is that's where I digging in, very soft. So looking at your right hand, this is where, again, just the high E string. Let's just say, how much can you change gears? That's hard to do from the hardest. It's probably a little bit easy to go. But the idea is what are the extremes of when we're hitting hard versus soft? And what happens with our musculature? When I start to dig in there, literally, I kind of start to flex up. Start to hold my breath. And that is all about everything's tight, because that's just how I grab those notes. Like everything is kind of, oh come on, it's gonna look really silly, but you can just kind of see. Maybe you can't. But I am. The whole thing is, as opposed to being loose. There you go. Yeah, it is. Whereas the kind of floppy guy, this guy. But when I dig in, I kind of hold my breath, and everything starts to, one of the things that I'm really enjoying doing is kind of getting these kind of they're pinch harmonics, but just ever so slightly. So that I have to the opposite of. Again, now when I do those pinch harmonics, the right arm tenses up, left hand's relaxed, as opposed to when I've got to do the vibrato and kind of bring the thumb around the top of the neck. But these little guys here. And I absolutely, let me put on some of the fun stuff. Just a little bit of that. Some snake oil. And I use it as a vehicle when I'm not playing with as much gain as I've got to kind of give you the sense that there's a little bit more. I'll switch back over here. So there's a. Also, a little bit sounds like an Octavia a little bit because I'm getting that. It also has a little tiny bit of that character that you get, Spencer, when you kind of get in about 2/3 of the way of the wah wah. There's this kind of. In any case, feeling where your musculature, where your muscles at, kind of how you're responding to different things, and actually going, wow, I'm always tense. So just kind of going, okay, well, let me try that hotel room thing that Doug was talking about, where everything is just totally loosey-goosey. You have to just kind of let the arms totally go loose and do the bowling ball, and kind of like, okay. That's to say, we're imagining the bowling ball is holding a pencil eraser, nothing that has any weight. So we're just like, I'm just going like this with a pencil eraser. Okay, that's what it'd feel like to go. Okay, got it. Actually, you know what? Do it with holding the pencil and kind of going, oh, there's my hand position right there. Thank you for that, Spencer. So the idea is that or wait, it wasn't Spencer that was asking about the straining. So the thing about that is just kind of going, okay, well, what am I doing that's causing the tension? Is it both arms? Is it one arm? The other thing is that the thumb is only intended to provide enough pressure to keep the neck from being pushed back. That's all it does. The only time that's any different is when you got it around the top of the neck, and literally for me, it's about enough pressure that I can literally hold the guitar like that when I'm using it for bend. Because I want to have that control. And that is a good grab. I might lighten up a little bit, but generally I've got a pretty good grab on there. And I will feel that kind of come up all the way, even a little bit in the chest there. So just kind of like, hey, okay, what's happening? But, being aware of what's happening. Also, when you're trying to do something that's do you automatically tense up? And hence, guess what? It gets tense. And the other thing is kind of, Bobby, when you play your fastest, are you already tensing up? And when you get excited and you're playing live, do you already do it more? In which case, then kind of go, okay, well, how do I get to my fast rate and not be tense? And launch metronome app. There it is. So you just work it up, and then again, the idea of bringing it faster than you need to play it, keeping it loose, and then bringing it down. That's a way you can kind of trick your body into it. And again, yeah, Terry, the height of the guitar is a big deal. I notice that many of the online instructors really focus on techniques and minimal theory. Am I really going to take that bait? Poke the bear. I was considering releasing a crash course on harmony and composition. So first of all, Matt, I think you have an exceptional understanding of that. And I think that's a real strength for you. I think that's a great idea. The interesting thing is that I think different teachers have different aptitudes for things. And I think there's also such an emphasis on just raw technique right now that arguably people are feeling the desire to meet a felt need. But the understanding of theory and how to apply it, I think there is a smaller audience for that. But it is for people that really want to understand that stuff, and you have a great understanding of that and are an excellent teacher, I think that is a huge benefit for the people that are hungry for it. And it's interesting. I ran across a guy. I'm not going to mention his name yet because actually I paid for the course, but the credit card payment didn't go through. And he's a really good teacher, but I think he's not that great a player. And I know that sounds really like, I don't think he's that. That's not my point. It's interesting. Psychologically, I love pretty much everything he had to say in his presentation. And then he started spamming my inbox. So there's that. So there's kind of this headspace of where things are at right now. But the idea of, giving people not just the fundamental understanding, but also some application, I think is great. I would love to talk with you more about that. Terry, you made me blush. Very kind. Thank you. Much appreciated. It's a different gig. And we'll leave it at much appreciated. Thank you very much. Spencer, I remember those trumpet effects. Steve Greenleaf, hello. Great to see you. Yes, I fingered it differently going down than on the first one. So yeah, the interesting thing is that if you guys are talking about the Satch guy, it was an interesting thing. He generally had you go up one way. And down the other. And that doesn't mean that he didn't have you practice it both ways. But it's interesting, and that kind of gets back to the muscle memory. It's just like, I'd say over the past 30 or 40 years, I've played that maybe 10 or 15 times. But like the if you went into Joe's lesson and you weren't ready, you would hear about it. Oh, there we go. So the idea is using 6 and then use the other 2 to transition. So yeah, the neat thing about the 6s is that they're, the fingering. All right, so what I'm mapping out, although I've gone nonverbal on you, I'm just kind of going, well, where's the best place to do it? First of all, one of the things that I discovered, it was at the Petrucci camp. I discovered I'd become just a wimp about moving with my pinky. And I was much. The pinky, if you can get more used to using the pinky for your slides, it really gets you used. First of all, it's the weakest finger. It's the one we're going to avoid sliding with. But there are going to be times, and that it's to your advantage to do that, because again, if we're starting in G major, one could go kind of like, well, what's the no-brainer way to start? Well, the first 6 notes of the G major scale is kind of like, I'm comfortable with that, because it's probably the most practiced 3-note per string shape that we would play. So taking that group of 6 notes and then doing the slide at the end. But the other way to go then, just for pits and giggles, because it is easier to do the slide, and this is one of the things that people always used to say about the Joe students, we did a lot of sliding on the first finger, and that was kind of, which is one of the reasons that I'm not as good at doing with the pinky, because it's not as easy. That is, I'm purposely not picking that slid note. So I'm picking the first note, restriking there. Well, that's really good. I need to be practicing it a lot more. And that gets you more comfortable with leading with the pinky. Because here's the other thing. It's like, there will be things that we're going to do out of comfort, which means there are a bunch of ideas that we won't play simply because, like, oh, I'm scared to, on a live stream, lead with my pinky, I might mess it up. And so we don't practice things. The kind of the way I have a tendency to choose what I'm going to practice, I find the things, I'm like, oh, I have a tendency to want to avoid that, which means I have a tendency to want to actually practice it, because I'm like that. So the deal is that if we're going to then, think about, that's going to force us to do that slide on the pinky. And you can do it with it, in this case, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 20 and a 2E and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E. All right. And that's how we... All right, so let's see if I can say this in English. So we can lead with the pinky sliding. Sorry, the first finger sliding. And then we come down. So we're going to then basically going down the 3 shape. We're thinking about that as B. As in B Phrygian. Going down the 3 shape and sliding from the B there down to the A, and then that sets us up to go to do that same thing again, and then back to. So the interesting way to practice this would be to do it both with a first finger slide. I need to think this through. And then with a pinky slide. And then then you're back there. So that is to say, sliding. Sorry. Basically, that's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp versus G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. What a great exercise. So, I'll slow it down fine. Don't practice it too fast until you can play it fast. But that gets you comfortable with sliding, which is great. Boy, that's fun. And as a matter of fact, I think it sounds better to slide on the pinky note. The other thing you get that 6. I digress. Gosh, I love practicing. All right. So, Christopher, one of the things is that, oh, I love this. I'm going to call them unconscious habits. Love that. Thank you for that. Conscious habits. Sliding on first versus pinky. And the interesting thing is that duh, we're gonna kind of do the things that we're most comfortable with, just kind of automatically, right? But what ends up happening is like, I don't know, if we picked up the guitar and we're gonna go, I'm gonna find a place. Guess what? My hand goes to A minor pentatonic. Like I'm like, I don't know there. So the danger of that is that there are keys like, again, oh, my hand, sorry. There we go. B flat. Oh, sorry. One of the greatest things about playing in a different key, and I don't spend an awful lot of time historically in B flat minor pentatonic and / B flat Dorian. But it has a different tonality. Harmonically speaking, because of where it is register-wise on the guitar. Go up to B. C. To my ear, sounds a little bit better the way this guitar is talking to this tone. That's a pretty sounding tone, but I would normally avoid it like the plague because you got that B string. It's just waiting to go. You're like, oh, let me not do that. Jose, great to see you. Pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining in. Bobby, with pleasure, my dear friend. Oh, that's about half a point font. One last thing. It doesn't have to be a last thing. When I was a kid in the 60s, we bended that third string by pulling it down, not pushing it up. You have more leverage on the bend by pulling it down like Eric Gales does. Eric has more strings available to bend that way because he plays left-handed. All the high strings can be pulled down as opposed to the right-handed where the E string and the B string don't have the room available on there. So the interesting... Oh, that That will hands down be the funniest thing anybody said all day. I love Spencer. I love that. And I love you. So the interesting thing. I almost will never. In fact, I just won't. Third finger pushes towards the fourth string. I almost never. I'm gonna need to make a note about that. Oh, Spencer, thank you. First finger bends. First finger bends. Finger bends. Bends. And versus third finger. Yeah, so almost if I'm bending with the first finger. But when I get over to the second string, there's just not that. Now I want to avoid that. The other thing is when I get to the fourth string, I very rarely will push the fourth string towards the bass string. Very interesting. Mario. So straight to the heart there. You know, the funny thing about that. Turn the delay off. It's a little hot. The funny thing is, it wasn't until I went and saw Billy Gibbons and ZZ Top with Skynyrd, 6 months back, that I kind of went, there's a lot more Billy Gibbons in that guitar playing when I pick up the guitar than I had realized, because ZZ Top, hate to admit it, was not a band that I had all their albums. I remember I had a ZZ Top poster that I won at a fair throwing rings in 7th or 8th grade. It was on my wall, and I remember, one of my guitar buddies was like, oh yeah, pinch harmonics, he's the guy. So, and watching him play, and I'm like, it's an interesting thing. What I love about Satriani is what I love about Billy Gibbons, and vice versa. They're so relaxed, but they're so iconic in the way they present their ideas. They're so clear about who they are as players that when they just go to do it, you just kind of go, there it is. You can recognize it instantly. And they don't seem to be, even much as Joe plays fast, he never seems to be in a rush to get there. Definitely then, seeing Billy Gibbons again with Skynyrd, and then also seeing him at Crossroads, because I had to go see all those players. I was just amazed. He's just got pacing. He's not in a hurry to get anywhere. And, if I could offer any advice, just don't be in too much of a hurry. Gosh darn it. Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Chris, you're awesome. All right. So interesting. So I am a fan of fairly big frets. Why I like a bigger fret? All right, Spencer, you know what? Oh, gosh darn it. I love you guys. I had nothing in there about slides. So if I'm literally just I hit the note once, or even the bigger fret allows me to actually get that's the danger, you know. You don't have quite as much stuff there, but the thing. That's a huge part of my playing those slides. So the height of the fret. Not a C sharp. Is an important part for me also. The height for me. Is how I get a lot of the articulation. Now, the interesting thing, again, when I'm playing a more melodic stuff, I have a tendency to be a little bit more on the flatter part of the pad. But when it comes time to play faster legato runs, I'm probably faster alternate picking. I come up on the tip of the fingertip. And even more so than I had, just a little bit more articulation on that first finger as well. Yes, unconscious habits. Brent, what's going on, my man? It's kind of like how much of the stuff that we're like, I don't even think about it. It is a thing. Great to see you. Playing with B flat instruments. There you go. Thank you. And that is the whole point. Is like, you know, the keyboardist that I play with plays in Leonard Skinner. He's and and it's the crazy thing. It's like, you know, I remember being like this tall listening to Skinner and actually going like, I know that guy. It's just, you know, it's just crazy. But you know, just getting comfortable. And the other thing is when you work with a vocalist, you're like, well, what's the best key for the song? You know, and you start playing, and you know, the other thing is you pick up the guitar sometimes. And you know, there are comfort keys. Ooh, I haven't put that in my notes, but comfort keys are a real danger because it means if you feel like you're playing in the same flipping keys and playing the same riffs over and over, it's because you're playing in the comfort keys, and it's kind of like that spot on the couch. You're like, oh, maybe I'm spending too much time on the couch. All right, awesome. Tony Lybrand, hey, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciated. Thank you, Mike. Always a pleasure. But you know that. Gilberto, ¿cómo está? Giant of guitar. I'm something. Bienvenidos, amigo. Muchas gracias. Very kind. All right. Gosh darn it. All right. The less you're thinking when you're playing, the better. You know, it's so this is an interesting thing. It's like you're so right. So the interesting thing that, you know, kind of happens with me over the course of a show, even like, you know, when my mornings, Saturday mornings are a little strange. In that, you know, I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do because this matters to me a great deal. And so when I first pick up the instrument, I'm usually kind of not right in the zone. And so I'm kind of having to work for it a little bit. And I play totally different as a player as opposed to when I'm like, hey, you know, when I'm not thinking. Notice I'm in A. you could not be, I gotta write that down, when you're not thinking about it. So this is, an interesting thing. Is like, I don't quite know how to kind of necessarily show people how to do that, but I think inherently we all know the days that we pick it up and like, I wasn't even thinking about it. It just kind of happened, versus the days you pick it up and kind of going like, what am I going to play? Like, I don't know. I'll go. But the other thing then, no. Whoa. I'm sorry. I really wanted to play it, but my fingers. And the idea of just kind of letting things breathe. Bobby, if you're still there, I would spend some time just kind of picking up the instrument and just kind of go, how can I add as much breath to everything that I'm doing? As in horn player breath, right? And then, and inside the breath, you kind of go, oh, okay. The other thing is kind of doing a little bit of a call and response with yourself. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Kind of go, okay, well, my ear hears something, ooh, learning to play what your ear hears. Okay, sure. All right, Spencer, you got more stuff for me. I love it. Interesting you say that. My first teacher said, play like a sax player, put in pauses where you think you take a breath. That was the beginning of my phrasing. So yeah, and you'll hear different people talk about this a lot, but not as much as I wish they would. Jose, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Awesome. Made my day. Thank you. So let's take a moment. I think we've sufficiently tickled the ivories in that area. I want to talk about a couple of things gear-wise. First of all, as Chris pointed out, the label maker. I'm in the process of threading several needles at the same time. I'm going to be doing a lot more in the gear demo world, and it's a very intensive thing in terms of the mental thing, but in terms of also preparing for 15-minute fundamentals, it's kind of like it's a full-time thing. My brain is always going on that because it matters to me that so much. And just as a point of clarification, Melissa and I had a little conversation after last week's stream. She said, I pointed out that there's a YouTuber that's making $1 million a year doing lessons. Well, I think making $1 million a year doing lessons is probably really, really cool and really, really awesome. Money is, besides when I was young and ambitious in different ways than I am now, money mattered to me in ways that it doesn't now. Buying some more guitars and some more amps and some of those things. That's what money means to me. Wealth doesn't really mean anything to me in that sense. Being able to buy a couple of new things is cool, but money for the sake of money is not why I do this. So, the label maker. So I'm going to be doing some gear related content, and I'm working out a decision in my head if in fact I'm going to actually do the 360-degree guitar podcast or just do videos. I don't know. And that's a conversation I've been having with myself. Melissa, if you're listening and I didn't share this with you, the idea, it's a video podcast. It can be streamed out on different platforms, but I'm finding the idea of putting everything under one banner is in one way smart, and another way that's kind of a little confining in a way that may not best suit. The idea is I just want to do content around iconic gear or just gear in general and gear tips. So the deal is this little label here and this little piece of tape, though you can't really see it that well. There you go. That little piece of tape right there. If you happen to have a 412 cabinet or a few, labeling on the back what speakers are in there when you're in the back there is probably a really good idea. The other thing about this particular piece of tape is it enables you when you take the screws out to be able to have a little bit of leverage to get the back of the cabinet off. So if you find yourself endeavoring in the back of 412 cabinets, I highly suggest that. Tape. If you find that you've got a cable that's seemingly like, wait, did it just kind of short out for a second? Put some tape on it so you can immediately identify which of your cables is the suspect one. And the next time you're using it, if you kind of don't have any problems, hey, Kevin, what's going on? Great to see you. Pleasure. Yes. Holsworth was just, and he was so marooned on the wrong instrument. That's awesome. You know, he was such a, great to see you, by the way. He was such a great player. I got a chance to see him probably about 4 times. And one of the shows was at the Berkeley Keystone, and Joe was there. There was a little kind of a crow's nest where the soundboard was positioned. He was up there with Jimmy Acevedo watching Holdsworth. This would have been long before surfing. But the idea of putting some sort of tape on there, and somewhere in the bottom of this trash can is a roll of tape that I threw away. And some tape is really, really bad about leaving a residue. Get it away from your gear. Generally, painter's tape is really good. It will eventually leave a little bit of a residue, and even some good black gaffer tape will do that as well once it starts to get really old. So just be conscious of that. But I'm constantly labeling things. This is, and I'm kind of famous for being in the back of speaker cabinets and not always putting all the screws back in for a couple of reasons. I have a vintage 1966 pinstripe Marshall cabinet, and these are the screws from the back of that cabinet. And the crazy thing is, this is probably like $300 worth of screws, maybe more, because they're the original screws from that cabinet. The casters from it are just like nuts. But this was before I was. That's actually an extra piece of when I cut off the ends from the tape. I keep the pieces just in case I need to put a quick label on there. But I can look inside these various boxes that I stow stuff in and know what's what. I also want to talk about urine. Really? So the funny thing is, this is from the bottom of a Ampeg speaker cabinet that I've got. It's a 412. I'm really into these big, tall speaker cabinets. And if you look, there's this kind of gross rust patina. And it's the same reason you'll never see me put a guitar case on my bed, because you get to the venue, you put your guitar case down on the ground. And if you've never been to the men's room at a nightclub, just think about all the stuff that gets tracked out of that urinal into the floor. There goes my guitar case. Well, let me lean it down and take my guitar out. Well, let me put that guitar case up on the bed. Not. So as I was looking at the rust of this, I'm like, okay, yeah, that thing's been rolled in and out of, a few venues in the rain, but like, I know. Yuck. Just saying, so keep that in mind. Again, other Marshall speaker cabinet back. That's actually the ones for this guy. When you're starting to collect little bits and pieces, this I have no idea what it's for. So the point being is, if you don't label it, you're not going to know what it is. So there's that. These, and I apologize I don't have the link. These are really cool for hanging your cables off of your studio desk. If you've got a desk or, kind of, whether it's a studio desk or just a desk, this is really cool. So I've got a bunch of these holding cables in place. I coil them up and put them there. I was about to go, hey, I bought this massive batteries and they're Great. Well, in classic kind of, I was raving about how much I love my Chinese rack drawers, sliding rack drawers last week, and then we have the Chinese batteries that literally out of the box don't work. I ordered those a week and a half ago. Unimpressed. Let's talk a little bit about compressors. My main compressor these days is on a large board that is in the process of being put together. It's floating around here. It does not have a tone control, but if by chance you're thinking about getting a compressor, generally I would suggest getting one. And this is a grab bag of like little videos that I will get to making, but I was like, you know what, I just like saw this stuff. I'm like, I just got to talk to you about it. Generally speaking, having a tone control on your compressor allows you to do one very important thing. Generally, if you can think about the attack of the pick as a transient, the compressor basically nails that and just kind of goes, you're only going to get that loud. So it kind of comes up and it's like, nope, you're not going to get any louder than that. But the transient is also the brightest part of your attack. So what ends up happening is that it ends up dulling some of the treble response of your playing in the process as the compressor's grabbing it. So the ability to have a tone control, which this one does, enables you to kind of bring back a little bit of the treble that compressors have a tendency to kind of pull out. It's a really nice feature. That's one of the things I love about this little Pigtronics compressor, and I figured I would share that with you. As you're working on dialing in tones on your gear, a looper to just play a phrase in and then get it looping, and then you've got yourself playing through it, and you can adjust the controls. It's a great vehicle to be able to do that with. Sonia had mentioned the P-Split last week. This is a great passive split to be able to just, if you're not needing to have some sort of A-B function, but just go to two different amps. This is a great vehicle. It also has the ability to flip the phase of one of them, so which we won't go into the depths of positive and negative wave flow, but you know, the short version is that one of my favorite delays actually is another Pigtronics piece of gear that's kind of over the shelf there. And what's really neat is that normally they're basically going up and down at the same time. The Pigtronics stereo delay actually has them going in opposite directions at the same time. And so what it creates is this really, really cool three-dimensional sound with a stereo delay. Even when it's the same millisecond setting, like quite often we'll set dotted eighth on one side and quarter on the other. One of the great things about having a stereo delay where it's set at the same delay time, but flipping the phase of one of them, it sounds great until you sum it to mono, and then the one going up and the other going down, they cancel each other out in mono. So there is that. Most people aren't listening on mono devices, but that is one of the drawbacks of that. I had a student that messaged me, yes, in a live stream. We'll circle back. Excuse me? All right. Okay. So, you know, the thing is the gear side of this thing. And by the way, if y'all have any questions, hey, what's going on, Kevin? We had a salutation further up, or did I just forget that I saw you down at the bottom and already salutated you twice? I don't know. I like that photo, by the way. Spencer, if you lose a guitar or a cabinet, they were stolen. If you lose a cable, it just went into the wrong pile. That's funny. You know, and that, you know, the idea of documenting different things in your studio. Here's the deal. It's like I've got a buddy, Tony Lucchese. He's moving houses and he's about to put together this studio. Part of the drama of me getting up and running in here is there's, you know, I've been in this room for about a decade, and for that decade, I didn't do a great job of labeling things and giving them a place to live. And so what ended up happening was I had just an influx of stuff that not only didn't have a place to live, but didn't have a way to kind of categorize it in its living place. So I'm kind of like, okay, let me never have to do this again. So I just want to encourage you, regardless of what phase of that you're at, to really try and just kind of label stuff and then give things a place to live. Hey, Jay, great to see you, my friend. Because it will make for a much saner studio existence or, music room, because there's nothing more frustrating. As Spencer pointed out, you go to look for this particular cable and it's gone. I have, oh, that's right. There's another little piece of thing. So the other thing that I did over here on the back of the boogie rack, there's all these different cables that kind of come off of here. You can't see it that well, but there's power and all that. So I've got a kind of a cable cubby, if you will, where all the cables in the upper right-hand corner, there's rack rails on the back of this particular rack. And I put a cable tie back there, and then I used another kind of cable wrap, or I should say a zip tie that's connected to the rack rail there. And then there's kind of a cable tie that connects all these cables together. And then I used a Planet Waves, one of their little kind of cable bundler dealios. And that means that as I move the rack around, sure I'm not going to do something I'm going to regret. There we go. Come on. There we go. As I move the rack around, all these cables on the rack kind of are tethered together. You probably can't see it that well, but that way they're kind of moving together, and it means that I'm not going to have a chance of really unplugging as much stuff or rolling over it, because they kind of are big enough that they kind of want to push to the side. So if you're using anything like that, it's a huge deal, and I kind of promised to myself that I was going to do that a couple weeks ago, and I finally got around to doing it this morning for you. The other thing is that, and these guys are not yet Velcroed in, but rack shelves, I think I've mentioned this in a previous show, but certain racks are not super deep. And so the end result is, come on, there you go. You have to find what the depth is if you happen to go onto Amazon and make sure you're like, okay, that's the total depth that I've got. But this is a huge help to be able to have all these things on drawers so I can get to these devices when and where I want to. So just something to keep in mind if by chance you rack. If you're roughly, 40 and up, chances are you've got a rack with some stuff in it, even if it's in some offsite storage. All right. Hey, I want to prepare for my day of teaching here. This has been hopefully insightful for each of you. Oh, yeah. Well, hang on, Spencer. If you got a minute for one more, fire it through. I'm here for you, bud. And you're welcome to email it to me. And by the way, there isn't a jam track this week. What a letdown! I know. I just kind of this morning as I was preparing, I was like, I'm in a little bit of a different mood. But I've also I've had a really busy week, kind of nose to the grindstone, doing a bunch of very intensive work, which is kind of my favorite kind. In any case, Chris, always a pleasure. Oh, wait, you know what? Hang on a second. You had some really good question that you sent through, so let me just real quick here. Hang on. There was one really good. Oh, you were asking, right. Yeah. So the interesting thing about these tuners is they actually, the more expensive one, and I need to go read the manual on these tuners. Well, now that battery thinks it's working. I don't know what's going on with this thing. But Jose, thank you very much. Adrian, hey, interesting session. Thank you, my friend. Mike Mitchell, hello. Till the next time, everyone. Griffin, you're the best. No, it's gone. But the more expensive one of these have a strobe mode, and so it's a strobing function, which is a little bit different than you need to go to the left, you need to go to the right, and so it's kind of it kind of gives you these visual kind of when you're needing to go in one direction or the other, where it's strobing, and it's a much better way to tune. Wow. We're going to get there in a second. So the one of the tuners is set up to actually strobing, and I think it happens to be a black one, and So that is to say, I think it's a they have these different variants of these, and some are just single notes, and others will actually tune an entire chord, which is actually kind of groovy. Um, and I need to see exactly which model the black one is, but I have a feeling the black ones that I have are slightly higher model than this, and it has a strobe mode, which is much better to tune by. Used to use a Peterson strobe tuner on my pedal board. They're great. Peterson products are phenomenal. The ability to put this guy up on the headstock, I just kind of got these at there were a couple of these at the guitar camps, and I was like, oh, I really love this. Vi uses them, so there's that. So the question was, though, about kind of, as you're recording stuff, when you're recording, do you ever think of how the listener will probably listen to your music? Like earbuds or stereo system? Would this affect how you mix the songs? What a great question. So there is a song. No, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the special guest on the instrumental album. And I'm going to leave that one. The reality is there's a huge number of people that only experience music with earbuds. Actually, I will gently open that can of worms. So the whole concept of spatial audio. There's a song that I have a special guest on the instrumental album, and they ended up layering 12 tracks of guitar. And I happened to kind of through Blackmagic Design, the company that makes the cameras that I use, and the switcher that I use, they kind of connected me with a studio that is they specialize in spatial audio. Apple's spatial, and then there's Atmos, which is 10.5 whatever the heck it is, and it's but basically it's multi-dimensional audio, and you can have things in different places in the audio sphere, if you will. And so this particular track, I was like, this is perfect for this thing. So in turn, when you listen to it on iTunes, once we kind of get there, if we end up actually doing it, mixing it in both Atmos and then bouncing that down to spatial audio, there's a generation of people that have grown up with earbuds. And so the ability of creating mixes specifically for them, and then being able to take advantage of the amazing guitar parts that this guitar player put on there. It might be easy to guess who the guitar player is. They teamed up with another guitar player recently and did a song that's going to be coming from an album. Hint, hint. But his guitar playing on this is just absolutely unbelievable. Just kind of holy cow. And even just the rough mix, you just kind of go, wow, just magic. And so the idea of mixing that for Atmos, and in turn then having that bounce down, because when you think about earbuds, they really are just like there is a left and a right. Spatial audio is kind of messing with that a little bit, but it's not really like when you've got a full Atmos system. But nobody's got an Atmos system in their home, and probably won't for a while. I'm sure the folks at Tesla will have it in probably the next generation of cars, but that's Elon for you. So the point being, that idiom is something that if there's a song that is particularly well suited for it, that would be it. It's just kind of it's pretty groovy. Meter. Where is this? There we go. Hang on a second. Oh, shush. Let's see. I tell you what, since you've been faithful to stick around today, I'm going to give you a little something here. All right, I'm going to mute the mic. Here's a little sneak peek. Well, glad you guys were able to hang out with that. That was kind of fun. Thank you, Griffin. Much appreciated, my dear friend. Chris, thank you for that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, that's going to be a really, really interesting track, simply because, again, I think you can tell who the other guitar player is. 12 guitars, and it just kind of a really kind of a fun story, which I guess I will unpack. I was teaching at the Vi Academy camp, and I knew that Steve, when he was done at the Vi Academy camp, was going to jump into the recording process with this other guitar player. So I thought, I have a little window here. So the week just before the camp, I kind of finished prepping all my tracks to send off. Oh, thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it. So there's a really interesting story. So the original demo of it goes into that bluesy jam at the end, which for me is my favorite part of the song. But we were in the studio, and there was kind of a decision. I was like, it takes away from the feel of the song, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of, one of the great things about being surrounded by great people is that they will help you move towards, there's some pretty vicious riffing in there, Jay. Thank you. And then there's the other guy. They sometimes will help you see things that you can't see, and so we decided to drop that bluesy part at the end, and kind of I got to preparing the tracks. I was like, you know what, F that. So I took the drums from another track on the album, and I spent a huge amount of time in Pro Tools using their TCE time compression expansion mode / module to stretch the drums, and it just wouldn't stretch in time. So finally, after spending hours, the first hour I was a little frustrated. By the time 5 or 6 hours, with great pleasure, my friend. By the time the 5th or 6th hour was over, I was ready to throw things, including a fit. Which I did, so I was like, you know what, let me open up Logic, and literally I watched like a little tutorial on YouTube, and like dropped the file in, stretched it, and the drum track you heard there is the drum track, actually, I think from Some Kind of Wonderful. So we did a remake. What do we got here? What do we got? Hang on a second. No, not that. Sorry, I just blew that out there. Hang on a second. I need to be able to hear this. Hang on a second. Not that one.
I don't need a whole lot of money. I don't need a big fine car. I got everything that a man could.
Let's see.
I don't need a whole lot of money. I don't need a big fine car. I got everything that a man could want. I got more than I could ask for. Now I don't have to run around. I don't have to stay out all night.
In any case, that's Caleb. And so I was like, I know the drum track and the song that I'm going to steal the drums from, so I snagged those and I time compression expanded them in Logic, and like in 15 minutes I was done. And so then I bundled all that stuff up with me, and kind of it was actually really kind of the guitar camp days are very, very, very long. Usually there's a first session that starts 8 or 9 in the morning, and then also I have the privilege of doing kind of these one-on-one little 15-minute private lessons over the course of the camp, and those are usually a bunch of them. I'll do like 20 to 40 of them over the period of a camp. But I kind of knew I had this little window with that guy before Steve was going to, be doing this recording thing. I was like, so I knew that Steve was doing the camp. So I'm like, Steve's not going to be able to do anything while I'm at the camp. So I kind of messaged this guy, whose name I won't mention, but and so we were kind of I brought all the Pro Tools stuff with me, and I basically sent him stems of the tracks. He cut his guitars, and then sent me this, and then had me change a couple of things for his mix, and so this was happening in the evenings, in the wee hours between midnight and 7 a.m. when I had to get up for the camp. This was happening, but there are times where, like, those long hours, you the benefit of just kind of going, what, if I lose a little extra sleep here, it was well worth it. So was preparing the stems, and then kind of sent them off to said guitar player, and then sitting there in one of the sessions, like, oh, got the tracks back. He was done. So it's like, it just it happened very quickly because he's a genius. But it's kind of a fun story. And that song in particular, there is an interesting story of kind of Chris, to your point about the medium, the format medium, if you will. I happened to be driving in the van one day, and like that song came on. I was like, I never would have thought to do an instrumental version of that, but I was like, oh, that would be really cool. And I happened to reach out to said guitar player. I said, thinking about doing this thing, would you be interested in playing on? He said, that's so funny. We've been thinking about using that as a jam song for. In any case, so I was like, okay, that's what I was looking for. So kind of, I kind of gathered it. The interesting thing is that all my guitar parts are from the demo. And I'm absolutely positive I'm not going to replay any of them because they're the parts. So it's an interesting thing. In closing, one of the neat things, and it was, who was that said that? It's Terry. Where is that little comment that he had? He said something about really, trying not to overthink, which is really the interesting thing is that, when you're just kind of cutting the demo, you're kind of like, oh yeah, whatever. And no, let me rephrase. You're kind of going, I don't know, let me try this, let me try that. Versus once you get a little bit further along in the process, you now are faced with this, like, this is what the world's going to hear. And you're hearing it through a much more critical lens, and it's very difficult not to respond in a way where you really emotionally kind of responding to the gravity of the fact that, like, this needs to be what I really need it to be. Versus earlier on in the process, I'm like, I'm just trying stuff out. And what happens when you're just trying stuff out and you're kind of not thinking about it? You're trying stuff out and not thinking about it. A bunch of the things that are going to make it to the albums were things that I wasn't thinking about. I was just trying stuff out, and it just happened in the moment where I just kind of hit a vein. And I'm increasingly going back to these demos and listening to things and kind of going, that stays, and kind of being okay that some of these things have got a few little warts on them, but the feel of something is supposed to kind of like, either I'm going to try and outdo it, or I'm going to try and recapture the energy of that. As you get in your recording, I encourage you to give yourself time and save everything, because you never know when you come back to it, whether it's for you, whether it's for the world, doesn't matter. There are times that you think, oh, I'm just cutting this, and all of a sudden you listen back to, like, something on that, and you can spend months trying to recapture that moment that you kind of went, I seem to have captured that better than all the other incarnations of me attempting to recapture that. And so the other thing that I would strongly encourage you to do is to document, when you can, what your settings are, because there's a bunch of sounds I'm like, I have no idea what I'm specifically playing through. There's a bunch of stuff, I'm pretty sure it's the Line 6 Catalyst that's going to make it on the album. There's a bunch of stuff that's the Boogie California Tweet and that Gibson GA20 back there in stereo. And I'm just like, and then a Eddie boost drive, and I have no idea where the settings were. I generally have a habit of taking photos of stuff, so if I kind of went back to the timestamp of the date that I did the bounce, I might be able to find the photos that immediately precede that and see those settings there. Generally speaking, when I go back to a piece of gear and use it, I'll take photos of where it was left before I change anything. But it's much more advantageous to be proactive about it. Is like as soon as I've got a tone going, I'm doing a demo around this amp, and I'm being much more proactive. As a matter of fact, the demo for this channel right here, I have not yet documented. So gosh darn it, I got work to do, and I have the privilege of teaching guitar today. I really appreciate everybody hanging out. And, you know, thanks for giving me the privilege of being able to share that with you. There's been a lot of time that's happened since the beginning of this project. It's had a few left and right turns, which is kind of the nature of anything bringing something to fruition. But being able to share it with those near and dear to my heart is much appreciated. Thank you. Have a great one, and I'll see you next Saturday.